Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion of files. Last time we talked about how to open files and close them, and also how to get files up to our Colab environment. Now it's time to actually do something with those files. And so we'll start by learning how to iterate over the lines of a text file with the for loop. So just like we could use the for loop to iterate through a range of numbers, or through the characters in a string, or through the items of a list, we can use the for loop to go through all the lines in a text file. Now those lines are delimited by what are called new line characters. And new line characters are invisible when they're printed, but they cause a new line to start. That's why they're called new line characters. If we want to put one in our own strings, we can do that manually with the \n character. So give this a try. If you try this in your Python notebook environment and print hi \n mom, what you'll see is those two words on different lines. So if we need to put in a new line character by ourselves in our strings, we indicate it with that \n. So let's look at how do we iterate over the lines. We use the name of the file object in the for loop. For line in file, okay, provided that in file is our file object that we opened with the open statement. So let's take a look at session 5.2 for an example of that iteration, and also look at how it's splitting input based on spaces. So first of all, I've already uploaded the rainfall.txt to my environment. So this is this file here, where we've got a city name, a space, and then an annual rainfall. Session 5.2, what we're going to do here is open that file for reading. So that's what the open statement does here with the R. Opens the file for reading. File object is named rainfile. And then for every line in rainfile, first we're going to split it. So remember that the split function takes a string and turns it into a list, divided based on the parameter that we provided. In this situation, we're providing no parameter, so it splits on white space. So values will be a list of the things on each line as we progress through this for loop. And then we'll just print them out. It'll print out the city name, then the word had, then the word or its amount of rainfall, and then followed up with inches of rain. So if we run this, there we go. It shows us all these different cities. Again, it's pulling the information from that text file, the city name, and its amount of rainfall. Now, one thing that's important to note is that the number here is still actually a string. Okay, so values 1, even though it looks like a number, is a string. So if we wanted to treat it numerically, we would have to do that differently. Okay. So there are some alternate ways of reading data in a file too, depending on what we need to do. There's the read function, which will read a file and return all or part of it as a string. So we could read the entire file in one ginormous string if we want to. Read line lets us read some or all of the next line in the file and return it as a string. And read lines with the S on the end, that lets us read some or all of the lines of a file and return that as a list of strings. So which one to use just depends on how you want to process the data, but those are available for us if we need them. So table 5.6 in your textbook and session 5.4 show how those work. So let's look at session 5.4. Okay. So, for instance, this one gives us the read line. So that will be a single line that we read from this. Okay, the first line of that file. And note the new line character now is visible here when we print that out. We wouldn't see it in the file itself, but when we read in, that new line character is part of the string that we get from read line. Now, if we open that file and use read lines, remember that's going to be a list. So now we have a list of all of the lines. They're not split, but every line is an element in this list. And then lastly, we have this idea of the read function. The read function there will read everything into a string. So in this situation now, here's the entire file as one string. Okay, and again, when would we use those? Well, it just sort of depends on what the situation is. We might need to do one or the other depending on the processing we're going to do. So we should just keep those in our back pocket. All right, in our next video then, what we're going to talk about is writing files. So we'll start there with the write function in the next video.